Hello, everyone. This is Nicholas Ugero, and today I have the pleasure and honor of having Alexander John on my channel today. Thank you so much for coming on. How you doing?
Hey Nick, I'm feeling great today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for anyone that doesn't, just so people are aware, I did meet Alex just recently at a farmer's market, and we kind of hit it off. I got like a good vibe from him, so we just kind of exchanged numbers. We've talked a few times on the phone, and I felt like the conversations were very valuable. So I wanted to, at the very least, record this off air, just to just to have our conversation just, I guess, saved for a future reference, and for maybe anyone that finds it valuable. I'm sure a lot of people will be able to glean some good information from it. So for anyone that doesn't obviously know who you are, if you just want to give a brief introduction of yourself and what you're all about.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Nick. So my name is Alex Courtney, and I've been a personal trainer for 12 years, and I've been on the adventure of a lifetime. My life has really been about taking responsibility, enjoying myself, and keeping things simple. I've been personal training with my brother Sean. Our company's name is Twice as Fit, pun intended. And we help prepare people for the life that they want to live. And we do it through personal training. We focus on the essentials of what it means to be human, and we also help people discover their life through movement. Aside from doing personal training, I love spending time outside. I have a farm of my own. I work with a garden space, and I like to do things naturally and work in alignment with, as some would call, natural law, God's law. And I'm here to just joy in my life and do things a little bit different and be the difference in my life and be an example for others, how they can live their lives to the best of their ability, whatever that might look like for them.
Absolutely. So that's great. So in terms of like keeping things simple, discovering life through movement. So if you could delve into that just a little bit, and like the whole mythos behind that.
Yeah, your movement is an expression of your life. So, as a human being, what's unique about us is that we have this ability to physically move. We can literally travel across the globe. We can do it by foot. We can do it by bike, airplane, trains, planes, automobiles, types of things. And a lot of things in health, everything is movement, right? So, if you think about when you eat food, your digestion moves. When you sleep, they say that your body's working and repairing. Everything is moving. When we're exercising, we're moving. When we're thinking, we're moving. When we feel emotions, we're moving. Everything is movement. Everything is dynamic.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, because it's very true, but you don't usually think about it too often. When you're eating, you don't really think about all that stuff, besides maybe when your belly's gurgling or something. So for personal training, what got you started in personal training? Was it something like just in your childhood, or was it just like a passion that you started getting into later on in life?
Well, my brother and I, we grew up outside. We grew up with parents who really encouraged us to explore. And since we had each other, I'd say that they probably let us do a lot of things that maybe a single child they wouldn't let do otherwise. So we spent a lot of our time outside, climbing trees, riding bikes with the neighborhood kids, playing on playgrounds, doing all the normal boys will be boys things. And as we started to grow up, physical activity and physical education was always something that I really enjoyed. I've always been a very energetic person. I've always had a lot of energy. So being physically active and being outside was just part of my makeup, something that I'm really grateful that my parents encouraged my brother and I to do. And when I was in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do at first, because I have a lot of interests and I like learning about a lot of things. And when I hurt my back weightlifting, it helped me look at life a little bit differently. And I was thinking about, I've been active my whole life. I've had a lot of bumps and bruises, gotten stitches a lot, but I've never felt this type of internal pain before. And around that same time, I found exercise sciences in school. And right around the time I graduated, which was 2011, I had healed my back pain naturally. I had gone to all these specialists and all these people, and they couldn't really help me. So it helped me dive a little bit deeper in, like, what do I really have to do to get out of pain? And I did it through movement. I did it through adjusting my attitude, getting myself stronger than the stimulus of that pain. And right when I graduated, I was at the university working out at the gym, and the director at the gym, she said, "Hey, Alex, I heard you're graduating. Like, congratulations." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "We're looking for personal trainers. Do you want a personal train?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So she said, "Come on in on Monday, and I'll show you the ropes, and we'll give you some clients." And as they say, the rest is history.
Wow, that's great. It's a great opportunity right there. Holy cow. So how long were you doing personal training prior to you deciding, I'm going to expand this and team up with my brother and we're going to do our own personal training? Was there a demand for it from the people that you were doing the training with?
Yeah, good question. So Twice as Fit started. We had our graduation party in 2012. I graduated in the fall of 2011, and my brother graduated in May of 2012. And the idea started then when we were gathered around with our friends at our graduation party, all of our best friends, and our oldest friend, who's on a similar path as us. He, knowing how my brother and I were, he brought up an idea of us starting our business. He like planted that seed, and the name Twice as Fit was brought up. So it started in 2012, and Sean and I, my brother, we went out on our own per se in 2015. That's when we really started just doing it on our own, and it was a work in progress.
Awesome. So, obviously, being a business owner, what would be, and then, like having clients, setting up scheduling, doing all these other things, what would be some tips you'd say for like keys to success on in terms of maybe like being punctual, communication, like what is entailed for you personally to help make sure that everything runs smoothly?
Hmm. Yeah, there is a lot of management that goes on, and I'd say first and foremost, make sure you're doing something that you really enjoy, and that you're solving some actual problems. I would say that those are the two biggest things, because when you're doing what you love, you start to have to do some certain things that you might not necessarily want to do, but are required for you to run a business. So that kind of keeps you going, keeping and having that bigger picture in mind and in your heart. And the other part is being responsible. You definitely have to be responsible as a business owner. It's, people, they bash the 9 to 5, and I have respect for the businesses that give people jobs 9 to 5, because there's so much that goes into running a business. So being responsible, doing what you love, and also outsourcing and working with the right team when necessary.
Awesome. Yeah. So, because I know that we've already spoken about like communication before, like the last time we spoke, and just the whole aspect. Like, 'cause I remember you were asking me questions. Like, what do you think about communication? Like, how do you do communication in your own life, and all that stuff. It really got me thinking, and I'd love to just expand upon that with you and just talk a little bit more about that. So, like, we're talking about like keeping your word. Like I kind of mentioned briefly, like being punctual. Because I've really enjoyed my conversations with you that we've had, and just like your demeanor and just the way you talk and the way you present yourself. So I'd like to know like what your thoughts are on communication, like what makes it so important for you, not even just on like a business side, but just as a personal on your personal side and just how you operate day to day.
Hmm. Well, I find communication starts with me, with myself. I start every day, every rising, with my personal practice. And, I lay in bed and I talk to myself. I listen, and I see what I really want to do for the day. And I like to be honest with myself. And it's interesting, call this, call this a blessing or call it a curse or both. I've noticed that when I am not, if I don't honor my word, it gives me a really bad feeling inside of myself. Call it a moral compass. But I find that when we're clear and honest with ourselves and other people, we end up doing the things that we really want to do. And and like a lot of the times, like in my work, for example, you're dealing with people who have issues and problems, or they're trying to hit really high performance goals. And you need to be honest with these people. A lot of these people are CEOs, CTOs, people who are high performers, and like you have to be honest. You can't sugarcoat things in a sense. Like you want to, there's definitely a way to say things, but like you've got to be honest with people, and in order to be honest with other people, you got to be honest with yourself. So again, with the communication, it's like, what is my journey here? What's living my best life actually look like for myself, and having those conversations. And if anything is standing in your way, like we were talking about, one of the topics we were talking about is shadow work, is integrating those aspects of ourselves and clearing out those things so we can keep doing the things we want to do. But it all starts with communication, another movement, right? And I find too is communication is really the heart of most issues, isn't it? It's like the he said, she said, the gossip, or breakdown in communication, or hearing stuff that we don't like, or it doesn't satisfy our opinions about things. I find that communication is one of the biggest breakdowns in humanity, and or lack thereof, as they say.
Oh, absolutely. Just the whole divide and conquer strategy that's been employed, and just everyone finding things to, disagree about instead of understanding, hey, we all want clean air, food, water, we all want a sense of security in our domain, wherever it may be. And just getting back to the simple things and understanding the core values of what we share as a human species. It really is quite sad to see so many people, at each other's throats over things that didn't even start with the people that they're mad at. It's actually been, uh, pulled by these puppeteers from far away that they came in like see or acknowledge at this time. So it's just really sad. But when you're talking about like being honest with yourself, I definitely talk to myself as well, and then doing things that you like, having a goal in mind for the day, or like having goals on how you're going to behave or interact with people, and then not following through with that. I definitely resonate with that, and just feeling that internal disagreement, that internal struggle of like, you're not supposed to be doing that. Come on, like just kind of get back to like where you want to go and the fulfilling things and all that stuff. So like that's definitely very, very important. So like when we first spoke, we talked about shadow work, and I definitely want to kind of get a little bit more of your mindset and your journey in that, and like what even got you like started in shadow work. Like maybe you were already doing it beforehand, or did you learn about shadow work and then start doing some of those practices, and what practices were they?
I come from the mindset that this is all for our dance to perfection and completion. I live by this saying, part of my journey is being whole and complete. And to be whole and complete, we have to look at the whole checkerboard, we have to look at the whole roadmap. And that includes the light side of things and the dark side of things. So my experience of shadow work is unacknowledged things in our past and our present that just need to be acknowledged. And it's just really that simple. And the more we put things off, the more it becomes cumbersome and a big deal. And it starts to really pull those strings, as you were saying. This actually also leads back to the whole communication thing. If I've done something that was out of integrity, I didn't show up to this call on time, or, I did something that was out of integrity, my immediate reaction and response is to restore integrity and see if it's had an impact on people. And I do this because what I've noticed with shadow work is that a lot of these things are actually very small little nuances, and it's how it lands and how we felt about it when it happened. And a lot of the times when we look back to it, it's really not that big of a deal. But it becomes this really big deal when we don't look at things and we don't acknowledge things, and we let things fester and build up and build up and build up until 20 years later, we're like yelling at our friend who triggered us by saying something, and it's just like, whoa, like what's going on there? It's not based on this conversation. There's something else there. So my experience with the shadow work is my practices is just being quiet and listening, spending time with myself, and really acknowledging what my energy signature is. And especially for the past year, I've been spending a lot of time on my own, this has always been my practice, and I find it's the nature of my being and also the nature of my work. I like spending time on my own and doing my own thing on my own. I'll use that in loose quotations. But then it allows me to listen, and then I can distinguish like what's my energy signature, what's not mine, and then it affords me to look through my days like, okay, this isn't my energy, so where is this coming from? Then I can really acknowledge that. And then at the end of the day, I just realize how simple I am. Doing simple things, taking walks, being social, doing my exercise routine, eating good meals with friends, teaching. And anything that's out of alignment with that is subject to be called shadow work and for me to explore and integrate.
That's excellent. Yeah, thank you for that. I know that there was one thing that you said that really stuck out to me. If it really stuck out to me, I would want to remember it completely. I can't. I think I'm gonna mess up a little bit but you said, I'm not lonely. I'm just alone.
Mm.
And
Oh yeah, it's I'm not alone. Well, yeah, so I'm alone but not lonely. Yeah, that's what it
I'm
is.
alone but not lonely. Yeah, so I like that one a lot. It's a really good. I mean, because that's something that I still have issues with. Like if I just had an interview with this gentleman Odysseus Andrianos, and I said like if I were to turn this turn the stream off and just turn off the lights, and then also especially turn off my fan, which has a lot of white noise. Like I get a little scared about doing that, a little frightened about doing that. And I really shouldn't be frightened about it because I'm not just gonna, involuntarily explode. I'm not gonna, lightning's not gonna come strike me down. It's just my mind. It's on my own mind. It's my own thoughts. It's my own emotions that are, either repressed, like most likely repressed because I have like a lot of tightness in my shoulders and all this stuff. Like I'm holding a lot of stuff in. I can tell that. Whether it's like my dogs that passed away years ago and I regret some of the things I did or didn't do, and not completely forgiving myself and moving on from that and allowing myself to feel those emotions and really just let it out. I've had a lot of experiences where I have let a lot of things out and I've just been better for it. More clarity, removing like toxic things from my life and incorporating things that I know are fulfilling for myself. I've noticed the benefits of that, but then even with all that work that I have done, I still can get stifled just from my own mind, which is definitely my ego, definitely my self-defense mechanism, trying to protect me in a sense. But it's definitely something that's difficult for me at this time. I'm trying to be better, trying to learn more, just be more observant, and going with that. That's something I definitely noticed with you is just you're very you pay a lot of attention to the small details, especially when people are talking. So I wanted to kind of delve into your mindset with that and like just kind of how you operate in that sense, how you deal with people, how you communicate in that sense. So if you care to elaborate on that, that'd be excellent.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thanks for that. Listening is an art. And it's not something that we're taught, right? It's something that you learn and you practice. And, working with people one on one, and someone who wants to get to the root cause of things, it helps you listen in certain ways. So part of listening for me is first of all validating people and acknowledging where they're at. And also it's part of it is hearing what's not being said. And then connecting those dots. I see it as this like big tapestry, and you're weaving the whole tapestry together. And I'm not listening to be right or wrong or to justify certain thoughts or feelings. Rather, I'm listening to see and observe and comprehend where this person's at. So so typically like if someone comes in for an evaluation, we go through a whole inquiry form and it's a list of questions and to get perspective on somebody, then we talk about it. And I don't have an end goal in mind. That's not for me to decide. That's for the client to decide, right? So here I am listening and holding space and asking these questions so people can look at the map of their life. And then they can start to uncover the whole map. And in this process, we both discover like, where is this person exactly? Where do they want to go? And how are they going to get there? And when you start to develop these listening skills and you do this for a certain amount of time, it's like you listen to people totally differently. Like, and I notice like there's a lot of default of listening. It's like, okay, I'm listening to agree with this person or disagree with this person, or and like from there is like I'm forming an opinion about this person. And as you mentioned earlier, like that's like that like hardened ego. And by the way, like it's another topic, but I don't think the ego is bad. None of it's bad, by the way. None of it's bad. It's all for our completion, right? But when we start to see things like that, we start to see the bigger picture of people, and then we actually have more compassion. And then also, what's interesting is people feel acknowledged and heard, and someone's not trying to fix them. Rather, they're just making a discovery. And this is why, again, like Twice as Fit's mission is discovery through movement. I'm not going to fix anything. I'm going to hold space and I'm going to share truths about what it means to be human. And let's see where you're at. Let's see where you want to go. And I'm going to teach you how to get there with these simple tools, and you're going to do it yourself.
Wow, that was a great breakdown. Thank you for that. Going from there, like when you're talking about exercise sciences, that was something that was piquing my interest a little bit. Can you just describe that for me really quick?
Yeah. So exercise sciences is an umbrella term for the different health related fields. So like I'll give you an example. It encompasses human physiology, exercise physiology, biomechanics, health appraisal and fitness testing, nutrition, exercise testing, foundations of exercise sciences. I also did an internship at a physical therapy clinic. So it's all the exercise science related fields, to have a comprehensive approach about health, because that's what health is, right?
All right, great. Yeah, it's a bunch of like, and that's the thing. Like when I, like I always think, like when someone's like really well versed in something, I'm like, oh man, like they're so smart. They're so much smarter than I am. But really, it's just dedication and then just learning. And then just through repetition, it just gets absorbed and then becomes second nature. You're able to talk about it with relative ease. So I know I can get myself in such a jam in terms of like just stifling my own growth. So that's something I'm realizing right now. Like I hear someone saying something and I could just get like immediately can get overwhelmed by it, and then I just like have a certain mindset or viewpoint about it. But going along with what you've said already about like not having not thinking about like not listening to disagree or not listening to agree or make judgments, but just to kind of like basically just like observe in that sense. So when I get those feelings, that's something that I would benefit from keeping in mind, is just having that more of an observer's perspective. Like when I get those thoughts or emotions, like where's that coming from? Not shaming myself or maybe starting to talk negatively about myself, but just just understand that like at least right now, like that can tend to happen for me at the moment.
Deep thread. That's a really deep thread, man. And if I may, like something is really showing up strong to share. So in the context that here, I'm going to establish a context. The body is always healing, and the body is never wrong. So, and what I mean by that is, even when you are having judgmental thoughts or you're listening to agree or disagree, like that's okay. Like that's natural, right? So it's like if I'm listening to Nick and he's saying something like, whatever it is, and part of my thought process, like one of the first initial thoughts, like I don't agree with him. It's like, okay, like I don't agree with him, but then I take it to the next level. And like, if it keeps showing up and it's creating a lot of emotional distress in me, like really triggering me emotionally, I put a bookmark in it. I was like, okay, like this keeps showing up for me for a reason. I'm going to bookmark that and put it on the shelf. Okay. And I'm going to pick that up in a moment. And the reason why I say this is because the reason what led me to have this conversation with you in the first place is that we're in a healthcare system that makes everybody wrong. And we're in a spiritual world, like a lot of the spiritual communities, they make the ego wrong, like ego death and all this stuff. And like the reality is that none of it's wrong. Now, there is good and evil here. Let's just be real here. Like on a very basic level, on like objective morality level, like there is good and evil, right? Like we shouldn't steal from people. We shouldn't kill people. We shouldn't do these things. That's wrong, right? But then like when we get into these situations where there's no perceived threat, it gets kind of gray. So what I've noticed is that if we stop making these things wrong and just invite them to the table, what ends up happening is we actually have a robust conversation with ourselves and like these shadows, and then we get to really discover. Um, because what I've noticed is that there's really not too many true like psychopaths and like really bad people on the planet. Like, and by the way, we all have that within us, right? So there's very few people who actually express that way, who actually want to manipulate and hurt people, because it's just not a good strategy. Like, it's a terrible strategy to be a human. You got to keep relocating. You got to keep. It's just exhausting if you really think about it. So as we start to invite these energies to the table, envy, hate, like shame, resentment, bitterness, like when they show up, like don't ignore them, right? Like that's part of the work. It's like, let's look at this and say, okay, like, okay, bitterness, like what's going on? Like, let's sit down, like I'll make us some coffee or tea or whatever the hell you're into. Like, let's sit down at the table and let's talk about this for a second. Like, what's really going on here? And like, if you come from a place of genuine curiosity, like most of the time, like it's gonna talk to you like a normal human being. It's not gonna yell at you because it wants your attention. And like when we look at it like that, we stop fighting ourselves internally. And and from that point we can actually learn from it. It's like telling you, then you can start to like dive down that rabbit hole. And in my opinion, this is why in healthcare, like the new buzzword is autoimmune, is because people are fucking fighting themselves and they make themselves wrong, and like they're not listening to it as an opportunity to grow and expand. So when we really do that work, that's what shadow work is, so to speak, is looking at that and not making it wrong and not pushing it away and not ignoring it, rather inviting it to the table and actually having a conversation with it, as opposed to making it wrong and shoving it down and, oh, love and light, but all these other things, I'm just going to push them aside. Like, no, like we all have capability of doing great good and great evil. We all do, right? We all do. And this is a new saying that I heard recently, is that people don't fear what people like Hitler and Stalin did. What they actually fear is that they're not that much different from these people. So how can we integrate these shadows, these really deep lessons? Because we're all human at the end of the day, aren't we? We're all human. So yeah, that's been showing up really strong thread why there's so much autoimmune, because people are just fighting themselves. So let's look at it all as a blessing, and your whole world opens up. It completely changes the context of your being.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something Odysseus was also talking about when, like, I've read his book, I've watched his video course, and he talks about like that's one of the reasons why we have a lot of like heart disease and these other things. It's like, yeah, it involves diet, lack of exercise, maybe external factors like the environment, your water, your air, things along those lines, but it's also having to do with yourself, repressing things, being in constant fight or flight mode, being stressed out, maybe just being addicted to your phone in general and using that as a coping mechanism potentially, and then just not getting enough sleep, not getting quality sleep, not being able to like you're talking about, like when you're in sleep mode, you're like rejuvenating, you're healing, so you're eliminating that aspect, and then just repressing things, and then that just bottles up, and then it can lead to like actual physical disease. And so just because you're the second person that mentioned that doesn't mean it's absolutely true, but like that, for me, that makes a lot of sense, and it does resonate with me in that aspect, because it just makes sense, because like I've noticed that with myself, and like just my own body and how I've kind of reacted over the course of years of maybe being a certain way or thinking a certain way or feeling a certain way. So yeah, that was all very, very good information. If you are open to it, I'd love for you to maybe give like a personal example of maybe like a certain shadow that you had, how long you were dealing with it, and then like what you did. Like, I'm sure it was like kind of bringing it to the table, but if there's any other details that you could provide and how you kind of like not overcame it, but took it in and like worked with it and transmuted it into something actually positive.
Mm. Yeah, I grew up with a lot of anger, um, and anger has been at the forefront in my life. And the first step of healing it was to make the distinction between anger and hatred, because it wasn't hatred. Like, I didn't feel hatred for people. And as I dove deeper into anger, what I realized that it was actually about change and caring and having compassion and having the fire to make a change. And where I find that that's come from is that I was adopted at birth, And 2 generations back, my grandma and my family had to flee from former Yugoslavia for their lives, like literally flee for their lives. Like if they stayed, they would have been murdered. And they came to America to give, their family a better life. And I find that the generation that I'm in, 2 generations later, as they came to America, is working with that anger to be the change, do something different. And it's not because I'm hateful, because I don't know what that means. Hate is like a lack of self-love. It's the wanting of change and doing things differently. So that's one of the examples, and I just came to that. I learned that recently when I met my birth mom. Was it 2 years ago? And I had my inclinations of it when I started my business, because I was really I was like angry at the healthcare system, because it's like, you guys don't care about health, or it doesn't seem like it. You guys stay in the symptom plane of existence. You don't get to the causal plane, so you guys aren't really helping people. It's all about what the insurance says that you can do. So what did I do? Instead of, bitching and complaining about it, I started my own company with my brother, because we saw hundreds of people healing just from simple modalities, and seeing people get off of all these medications and off all these complicated things just by acknowledging where they're at and working on their health essentials and getting them exercising. So that's another great example. And I use that anger to meet my birth mom, have the courage to go and find her. And that's a whole nother story to get into too.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I was going to ask you, I was trying to think of the term really quickly, but it's basically like, because the way we're sitting all the time, or maybe like the way we're sleeping. Like for me, I have like wing shoulder blades, and it affects my movement, affects the way my shoulders are, affects like also just the way, like having a crappy bed for so long, the way my hips were. I was trying to think of the term, but it's like going back to like natural movements. I forgot what it was called. It's like on the tip of my tongue, but it was man, I can't remember. But it's like doing certain movements and certain exercises that helps like reposition like your body into more of like a natural state, to where I don't feel like weird sitting up straight with my chest out, like I'm all like cocky or something like that, because I'm just so used to being slouched forward. So for me, like this is very like alien to me. Man, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember what it's called. I was trying to just look it up really quick. Something movements.
Functional movements?
Functional patterns. Yes, functional patterns, functional movements. Do you know anything? You solved the riddle for me in my own mind. Do you know a little bit about that? And if you do, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'll list out some of the functional patterns: squatting, hinging, lunging, pushing, pulling, and I throw in groundwork, getting onto the ground. And functional movement it's no more than how humans naturally move, how our ancestors moved, and how your body moves. And the movements that I just listed, by the way, these are the movements that I teach everybody, because that's where all your dysfunction lies. People like to demonize things, and they like to say sitting is terrible and this is terrible, or football's terrible, or this movement's terrible. There's no terrible movement. It's all about balance. It's about doing what's necessary to really create posture and balance in the body. So like, I'll give you an example. If you're sitting behind a desk 8 hours a day for 40 years, we'll be conservative and say it's 48 weeks a year. Okay. And you do it for, X amount of years. Like, the body is so smart that it's going to be like, okay, X person is doing this for this long. I'm going to get really good at this. Okay. And it doesn't mean I'm going to be good at everything else, right? But if that's what I do, then that's what the body's primed to do. Now, having that posture forward and being in that fetal position, is it good? No, because that's the position of sympathetic drive. Like that's the position we get into when we're about to fight. That's the position that all the muscles that get super tenacious, what's the word? They get super tight to fight, right? That's why you're feeling tightness up here. Like when your nervous system is out of whack, a lot of your sympathetic nervous system is in these muscles and in your thoracic spine. So you can be ready to fight, right? So it's not the sitting that's bad. There's not enough variation. So it's like I tell everybody, Alex, people ask me, is it okay if I sit at a desk 8 hours a day? It's like, yeah, sure. But are you preparing, like opposite wise? Like, or are you just going to keep doing these devolving exercises, right? So again, it comes back to, what do you really want to do with your life? If you do all these movements on a daily basis, I guarantee that your posture is going to be better, and I guarantee that you're gonna feel better.
Great. Thank you for explaining that, and thank you for finding the like what it's called, because I was at a loss for words on that one. So thank you for that. Thank you for explaining that as well. Wow, it's already been 35 minutes. Holy cow. So I wanted to keep it roughly around a half hour, 45 minutes, like I communicated with you about. So, I mean, you did mention that you have a farm and that you do gardening. So that obviously is piquing my interest as a gardener myself. Like what are you working with? What's like the layout? What are you trying to grow? How do you grow it? I'm sure you spray a ton of Roundup, and I'm sure you use a ton of Miracle-Gro, and you just do everything that's opposite of nature in order to get success, right?
Yeah, so I've been working on this farm for about a year now. I lived there last summer. I lived with one of my old friends there. Really appreciate him, by the way, for letting me live with him, because it was a totally life-changing experience living there. And really what I do is I work with a farmer. He's been doing this for about 50 years now. He's in somewhere in his 60s, but lifelong farmer. And what's really fascinating is what we do is we work with the land in a good way. We work with all organic material. We grow everything over there, from all the types of vegetables you could think of, aside from carrots. Carrots don't grow good on the land for whatever reason. Different fruits. He has different fruit trees. He has cucumbers, like all of the above, currants. And it's really kind of cool because I've taken my personal training and health experience and teaching, and it's dovetailed so well into this gardening. And just work with everything in a good way, observing the cycles, working with all the different organic material, doing a lot of no-till as well too. That's been really a cool eye-opening experience, and just constantly giving to the land. It's hard work. It's definitely hard work. It's been really it's been very humbling.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you start gardening just a year ago, or were you kind of already doing it a little bit, and then you got this opportunity, and then that kind of expanded it? Is it just the farm that you grow stuff, or have you like expanded that into like your house or around your house? Because I saw you had like a money tree, I believe that was, to your left. Yeah, so I saw that. So you got at least some house plants too.
Oh yeah, I got tons of house plants, and I got some morning glory vines, and like having the green in the apartment, having all the elements. But no, to answer your question, I started really diving into gardening about 5 years ago, and I didn't really take action about it until about 2 years ago. One of my friends, she has a garden, and she showed me her space 2 years ago, and that's what really got me started, like in action and on the ground. And what caught my attention is how well her garden was doing for the amount of watering that she did and for the amount of attention that she gave it. And it really reflected how I live my life, like doing a lot of the preparation work at the beginning of things, and then being consistent in the maintenance and the management of things.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, so what would be some, like, 'cause I know you said we use organic, things to help out the soil. Just some bullet points, quick bullet points. What would be some keys to success in that arena? So for someone that's wanting to garden and, doesn't have much information, but also doesn't want to use any of these chemicals because they have an understanding of how bad that is.
Yeah. Wood chips, working with wood chips and starting now so that they can start to break down and build up the soil. So quality of soil, making good compost, so that you can give back to the soil and not deplete the soil. And also observing and working with the cycles of gardening. So harvest is just as important as when you're in the off season and you're preparing the land, right? It's always about giving back so that you can keep the quality of the soil up. So working with all the organic material for carbon and for nitrogen, like different greens and different wood chips as well too. And if you really want to know how to garden, find an organic gardener or an organic farm and go put in some sweat equity, because you'll learn everything just by working. And like the teacher, I call him el profesor porque hablamos en español juntos. What's interesting is that he tells me what to do. Like he usually tells me what to do, and then like from there, like as I experience it and do it, like certain questions will show up, and then I'll ask him questions, and then he'll explain it. That's been a really great way for me to learn, and that's how we learn, right? It's avoiding all this like mental masturbation. If I have to figure out all the different methods and I have to do this before I go out and start my garden, it's like no, like learn a little bit, go put it out there, and then we learn best by experiencing and then teaching others, like I'm doing right now. I'm teaching you about what I'm learning, and also doing it, discussing it, and teaching. We learn way faster, way faster, and we retain what's important. So we fail fast so that we can grow quickly, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's what sets us apart from the other like animal kingdoms and other species, because we're able to, take information and then expand upon it as well. So we're able to, build on top of one another. Like when I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, that cliched saying. Man, I just had something really quick I was going to mention. Oh yeah, so like my first year gardening. So I knew I didn't want to use any chemicals or anything like that. I watched this gentleman, James Corbett. He had a video about guerrilla gardening. So that really got me motivated with like tangible, bullet points as to why it makes sense to do it and why it's such a big middle finger to like the food industry and all that stuff. It's a very valuable skill to have. So when I was first, I bought starter plants. I didn't do anything from seed, but I had literally so little knowledge that I was thinking I had to take all the soil off the plants. So I was literally just like throwing them on the ground, trying to get all the soil off of it, so like then I could put it into my soil. And that's not a good idea. Don't do that. So I ended up killing like 5 or 6 plants. And luckily, most of them survived. I don't even know how. Very resilient plants. But then I thought to myself, you know what? That's just like a $25 lesson. Like even though I definitely didn't have all the know-how on just basic transplanting. But I use that as a learning experience, and I never did it again. And I've been really, really good at keeping things alive when I'm transplanting it, moving around. Like I have like a wheat plant in my backyard, and I literally cut the main stem off of it, just shoved it in one of my other containers, kind of mulched around it, just kept watering it. Within a week or week and a half, it's like still alive. It didn't die. And all I did was just shove it into the ground. That's really all I did. So I didn't really do much to it, but I've learned a lot. I made basic like kindergarten mistakes, but you always can learn from it. It's just what you decide to do with that action or scenario that happened. How are you going to deal with it? Are you going to dwell on it like I tend to do with a lot of things, or are you going to observe it, sit at the table with it, give it some coffee, whatever it wants, and just learn and just get a deeper understanding about yourself, like what's important to you, and just taking each day, like you were saying, like each rising, like you're talking to yourself, like what do you want to do? What do you want to get accomplished for the day? Really good practices. So a lot of good information that I definitely need to, not need to, but I would find a lot of value in also doing myself. So like with me, like I have my journal over here on my bed, and I still haven't wrote in it for a couple days. I want to at least get back into that. So I got to catch up probably tonight, but just doing daily practices, like list off some things that you find fulfilling, and just go from there, and just try to, have those be some goals, because it deeply fulfills you. Because I know for a long period of time, I didn't know like what I wanted to do. I didn't really have any passions besides video games, and that was just like a big coping mechanism for myself. So yeah, we're already at 44 minutes. If you just want to give like another, if you had anything else you wanted to say, anything you thought was valuable that you wanted to express to people, I'm in Illinois. I know you're in Illinois. If you want to let people know like where they can find you, if they are in the local area and are listening to this at a future date, absolutely you can do that.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I just want to say I appreciate the time and the effort. It's been really nice getting to know you, and looking forward to doing more of these and whatever it looks like with us. It's been a good opportunity to share some of the thoughts and some of the work that I've been working on. And whoever listens to this, hopefully you can take it on in a way that makes sense for you or not, whatever you call to do. Yeah, I'm in Illinois. I live in Lake Bluff, Illinois right now, and I work out of Highland Park. And the two best ways to reach me are you can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Twice as Fit. And also, just giving me a call, having a conversation on the phone. Those are typically the best ways to reach me. I like bringing the old back, as they say. I like talking on the phone so we can really get to know each other. And other than that, really appreciate your time, Nick. Looking forward to talking to you some more and diving into these things. And my best advice right now is live the life that you want to live, and be yourself, because everyone else is taken.
That is so good. That was a great way to end it. Be yourself because everyone else is taken. That was really good. I gotta write that down. So before I go, I'm gonna write that down.
Please.
Be yourself because everyone else is taken. Where'd you hear that from? Is that something you came up with?
That's an Oscar Wilde quote.
That is awesome.
First heard it from him. And I find it to be actually really applicable to today. I've been working with that because, that's what training is about, is discovering who you are. And in a world that tells you that you need everything, and technology is so advanced, by the way, really cool. But also it's just like we're getting so inundated in information. So I find it to be relevant and really helpful to work on ourselves, train, take time for yourself, and really discover who you are. And it's not really as hard as you might think it is. It's actually really simple. So I find it to be really pertinent and relevant to what the times that we're living in right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for coming here and talk with me. Punctual as always. Very much appreciate it. Excellent talking to you. I look forward to talking with you again. Hopefully we can hang out at some point. It'll be very, very, a lot of good information, a lot of good conversation, a lot of good experience. Definitely somebody that I want to associate myself with. So thank you so much for, having the interest in even swapping numbers, and talking on the phone. It's really been very beneficial for me and just giving me like a different perspective. And it's just been great for that. So if you just want to stay on really quick, I'm just going to end this right now, and then we'll be able to, talk and finish up and then go our separate ways. But thank you guys so much for watching. It really means a lot to me. Take care.
I fear I'll die from complications. Complications due to things that I've left undone. That all my debts will be left unpaid. Feel like a cripple without a cane. I'm like a jack of all trades who's a master of none.